Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here at KAKM Studios for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the fire danger map here, we've got quite an area across the upper Yukon, about the White Mountains, right on up into the Noatak Valley there, across the Koyukuk and Kobuk Valleys, and an area here over the central Seward Peninsula, and then some areas here along the Alaska Range and also in the Copper River Basin. Some of these areas actually extreme on the fire danger there. Moving on to satellite imagery today, a lot of clouds here and showers scattered around, mostly cloudy with scattered showers, really from the northern edge there all the way down to the coast. Some more clouds developing system here pushing up toward the Panhandle. And I'll spread some rain in there later on tonight or this evening. Otherwise, not a bad day, basically dry, mostly cloudy, a few scattered showers up north, a few clearing areas down to the south, and that's where the temperatures were the warmest. And up here to the north, thunderstorms breaking out along this northern edge of the cloud shield there, right through here. Some of those may be described as embedded, but more isolated activity up there along the Brooks Range. This clouds building up throughout the afternoon. Sunshine here, Arctic coast and areas of the north, or sunshine across the north slope and areas of the Arctic coast. Out to the west, lots of clouds, kind of a circulation right here, weak low pressure area at the surface, upper level trough out in that area, and a few showers, but nothing too significant there across the eastern Aleutians, a little bit more along the Alaska Peninsula, and then of course a lot of showers in areas, hit and miss there across most of southern Alaska, and then some more clouds with the next system that's trying to push into the Aleutians, but looks like it's going to mostly slide off to the east. And rolling this through again, westerly flow up here just off the Arctic coast there. Another band right through here that's going to be approaching the area later tonight and tomorrow morning and pick the winds up a little bit there and increase the chances of rain. But for today, again, thunderstorm activity breaking out, a little more numerous here over the eastern areas, but stretching all the way back toward the Nulato Hills there, eastern Norton Bay, and sunshine to the north, mostly cloudy, cool, showery conditions all the way down to the coast and Kodiak Island, maybe a few showers, but mostly cloudy conditions here along the Alaska Peninsula. Rainfall amounts range from about 0.4 of an inch today, falling at Big Lake, or in the 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon, while Iliamna picked up about 0.13 of an inch of rain, or actually they had 0.4 of an inch also there, as well as Big Lake, and maybe 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch in some other locations. Of course, other locations had nothing at all. A few light showers over the northern Panhandle, mostly cloudy, becoming partly sunny down toward Dixon Entrance. For tonight, that storm system that was right there on the today chart moves on in. Rain head of the front spreads in over the Panhandle, mostly heading into the south, but gradually shifting up to the north there, maybe including Yakutat. Otherwise, mostly cloudy, scattered showers. Southern Alaska, right up into the eastern eastern Tanana Valley, maybe the southern upper Yukon Valley areas there, and then some lingering showers back here to the west from Norton Sound area on down in toward Bristol Bay, and showery conditions also for the Alaska Peninsula, but winds quite light here out over the Bering Sea. Very weak low out there, 1,014 millibars, really not much gradient at all, so areas of low clouds and fog could also form with some scattered showers, but no heavy weather at all, just maybe some patchy fog there, St. Lawrence Island up into the Strait. Staying dry here along the north slope, much of the Brooks Range as well as the Arctic coast. System still back to the west there. Actually, that first band I pointed out in the satellite really washes out and kind of just trails off to the northeast there. And not bad here over the Aleutians. A few scattered showers over the eastern and central areas and light winds back to the west. For tomorrow, that system weakens, pushes on eastward there, so rain late tonight into much of the day tomorrow begins to turn showery, especially up here in the north, becoming more showery, and eventually down over the southern areas. But looks like a pretty wet day coming up for that location. And partly to mostly cloudy here for southern Alaska, some scattered shower activity, and again some isolated thunderstorms here over Kilbrook Mountains and the western Alaska Range, and maybe up through this area, but nothing to the that would be to any greater extent than what was seen today. Maybe a few showers up over the eastern Brooks Range. Here's that front approaching the Arctic coast there on the west side. Southwesterly flow here pretty much guarantees VFR weather and some sunshine for the central eastern North Slope is right on out to the Arctic coast. Looks pretty good for the Seward Peninsula. Again, some showers developing anywhere over the inland areas here, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Other areas may be seeing a little bit of clearing. Weak ridging out here over the Bering Sea keeps winds light, turning it more northwesterly here along the coast and down across the Alaska Peninsula, west-northwest. Pretty light before they pick up on Monday, and a weak trough out here. And then this moisture just sliding off to the east, actually some of this lifting north a little bit, may bring a chance of rain to Adak and on out to the west. Otherwise, high pressure out over the far western Bering Sea, and several troughs coming across the Gulf of Alaska, actually dropping northwestward here, and probably going to rotate into the southeast coast tomorrow night. But then on Monday, that whole pattern is more to the southeast there from just east of Kodiak Island, dropping southeast, partly to mostly sunny or partly to mostly cloudy, either way you look at it, but just some scattered isolated showers here over the southeast coast in store for Monday. Another trough right up through here that could trigger a few scattered thunderstorms there, Copper River Basin, particularly the eastern Alaska Range, and that same sort of pattern on up across the eastern interior there with this low pressure area up over the, well, pretty close to Arctic Village or just to the east there. Now, original front just breaks apart. Some of that moisture shifts eastward on the thermal wind and brings a chance of light rain over the eastern Arctic coast and some showers on down across the north slope there to the Berks Range. And then this portion drops southward, so that brings some clouds and showers. That'll pass across the Seward Peninsula tomorrow night, early Monday morning, and kind of settle into this area during the afternoon. High pressure becoming a little stronger, 1,031 millibars, so look for those winds to definitely increase here along the coast. Westerlies, small craft advisory westerlies across the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, turning northwest and getting a little brisk here across Kodiak Island, but that means some pretty good sunshine over Bristol Bay. Western Cook Inlet, we've got a trough here, kind of northeast flow aloft, bringing some shower chances right into the Chugach Mountains and the Talkeetnas. Palmer, better chance of seeing some showers than Anchorage will. And then the Copper River Basin looks pretty cloudy and showery again with some possible isolated thunderstorm activity. And out over the Bering Sea, just low clouds and fog. And then this system definitely bring rain into the western Aleutians, to the central areas ahead of that warm front. And some of that moisture, leftover moisture, will slide up into the eastern Aleutians there for a chance of rain, fog, or drizzle. Definitely lower flying conditions there during the afternoon hours. And for temperatures this afternoon, along the southeast coast, mostly in the 50s, mid to upper, but Skagway at 63, and down south, Metlakatla, 64 degrees, otherwise 53 at Sitka, about the same in Juneau, Yakutat 57, 51 in Cordova with a 54-degree afternoon reading there at Valdez. Up at Northway, 48 degrees, rain, and near 60 here through the Copper River Basin, 61 in Anchorage, 50 degrees in Kenai, 55 down at Homer, same thing in Kodiak. Tanana Valley, 65 to 70 for the most part. Again, not the highs, mid-afternoon temperatures, but pretty nice up through there, especially to the north where there's more sunshine. Eagle, 76, 70 at Fort Yukon. Beaver up to 77 and a 72-degree reading there at Bettles. Even Anatuvik, Arctic Village up into the mid-60s. Umiat Airfield, 70 degrees, 70 at Ambler, 70 also at Huslia with 51 over Kotzebue. 39 though at Shishmaref, and 50s, 40s right along the coastline to upper 30s there at Kaktovik, but places like Nuiqsut up to 64, 51 at Point Lay. 40s here, the Alaska Peninsula. Golovin did push up to 57. Even warmer temperatures into the mid to upper 60s over the interior of the peninsula. Mid to upper 50s here over much of the southwest areas, but McGrath up to 60. Otherwise 50s all the way down to the coastline. And Bristol Bay out in the Bering Sea, Pribilos mid to upper 40s there. Same pattern for the Aleutians. Lows for tonight, pretty mild here over the central interior, lower to mid 50s, otherwise 30s on the Arctic coast through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island, 40s to near or into the lower 50s everywhere else. And for the highs tomorrow, again pretty nice, 60s to lower 70s here up over the interior areas. Another nice day up there and warm along the north slope, could reach maybe up to 75, as well as south of the mountains. Cooler conditions here over the Copper River Basin and the Panhandle with the clouds and rain mostly stuck in the 50s, 40s out west. And for flying weather tomorrow morning, you've got some IFR here over portions of the southeast coast, also up off the Arctic coast with that system approaching, and of course out over the Bering Sea. And by the afternoon, that area just becomes marginal for the Panhandle. IFR looks like it appears to shift back to the west in toward the Gulf. Good VFR, Cook Inlet right up to the North Slope areas, and the low stuff out here where it belongs, Chuck CC through the Strait, covering much of the Bering Sea, but not quite making it to the Aleutians. Anatuvik, VFR, same forecast for Adigan tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Improving conditions also in store for rainy. Windy though, VFR, Isabel, maybe some showers. VFR, variety showers also from Mentasta. Tanita, pretty good. Portage, open. And Chilcoot and White look marginal. Freezing levels showing 4,000 feet here from the southeast Bering, across Kodiak Island, the Gulf of Alaska, right up there toward Yakutat. Not much of a gradient there across the Panhandle. 6,000, warmest conditions up over the northeast interior. And icing tomorrow with the front coming in, rime icing, mostly above 6,000 feet there for the southeast coast. And then areas of rime to mixed icing over the interior areas, again mostly over the central areas on down to the south, above about 7,000. Upper level wind flow chart, that upper low shifting from the Bering Sea now into the Gulf of Alaska for tomorrow. And of course that means rain for the southeast coast, otherwise showery over the interior areas. And at 9,000 feet, a little more hint of a ridge building out here over the eastern Bering Sea. Westerlies 25 to 35 across the top of that ridge, up to 30 knots ahead of the approaching front there on the western Arctic coast. Otherwise pretty light everywhere else. 3,000 foot winds, much the same pattern. Southwesterlies with that front approaching 25 to possibly as high as 35 knots. Light over the interior, varying directions, light under the ridge here over the eastern Bering Sea, up to 25 knots there across St. Lawrence Island. Lighter but becoming southeast over the western Aleutians. Turbulence map looking like this, maybe some mechanical light to very isolated moderate chop for small aircraft along the lee side of Kodiak and Fognak Islands. Also on the lee side of the Aleutian Range, maybe Kamishak Bay on down to the south. And then probably a more widespread area here with the winds, westerlies and southwesterlies from St. Lawrence Island through the Strait up along the western Arctic coast, cutting off though before you reach Barrow. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Tucked away near Soldovia, Alaska, along beautiful Kachemak Bay, is the Kositsna Bay Laboratory, which is operated in partnership by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the University of Alaska Fairbanks. This unique marine research and teaching laboratory is dedicated to excellence in marine science and provides a place where people can learn more about marine and coastal ecosystems. Here today to talk about the laboratory are its directors Chris Holderried and David Christie. Why is the location of the laboratory so important?
Jim, Kachemak Bay is a microcosm in many ways of southern Alaskan coastline. It has rocky coastlines, it has glaciers feeding into it, it has eelgrass beds at the head of the bay, and on the north side it has cliffs that are eroding into the bay. So we can, within just a few miles of the lab, we can access all these different types of ecosystems that live with these different environments.
So you have basically a small little world encapsulated in Kachemak Bay.
Provides a natural laboratory.
Yeah. Well, how long has the lab been around?
The lab's actually been around for as long as Alaska's been a state. It
Wow.
was originally constructed in 1959. There was a recognition back then that some of the same problems we face today with sustainable use of coastal resources, there were some challenges then, particularly in the herring fishery, and they saw the need for more science to understand those changes.
So who oversees the laboratory?
Well, the lab is actually run by NOAA through the National Ocean Service, and in the National Ocean Service it's part of our Coastal Ocean Science program. And then we're run in partnership with the University of Alaska Fairbanks. But one of the interesting things is we actually fall under what is called the Center for Coastal Fisheries and Habitat Research, which is another facility located in Beaufort, North Carolina. Some people say, how do you have this connection between coastal Alaska and coastal North Carolina? But if you look at the issues in both places between fishing and ecotourism and sustainable resources, and they are very, very similar. It's a pretty easy connection to make. There is one of our unique features in the lab is that there is a whole range of folks that get to use the laboratory, both from the research side and from supporting our education missions. On the research side, there's researchers from NOAA offices, from other federal agencies, from state agencies, and as well as university scientists. And from an education group, we've got college students, both undergraduate and graduate, and school children that come for field science camps.
That's outstanding. Well, describe some of the research that's being done at the laboratory.
Well, one of our main focus areas of research at the lab is how do we provide the science to sustain coastal resources. Obviously, use of coastal resources is very important in Alaska, and so how can we support that with good science? Some examples are understanding the underwater habitats and how fish and other species are using those habitats, and supporting uses like local mariculture that the oyster farmers are doing.
A lot of the research at the lab focuses around questions about how ecosystems work. How will they change in the future as temperatures potentially change? How will they change with changing amounts of sediment coming into the bay as the glaciers retreat? And in general, why are things where they are and how are they changing through time? And the particular areas that have been focused on recently in the lab are in the kelp forests, which are extensive in the bay, and of course they provide very good habitat for young fish and other animals, other organisms. And then the extensive intertidal zones. We have a 28-foot tidal range in the bay, which means between high and low tide there are very large areas in which a wide variety of marine organisms live. As we move into the future, we'll be increasingly adding components of instrumentation to the lab, so developing and experimenting with new ways of observing and measuring what's going on underwater when people can't be there.
So what classes are being taught at the lab?
There's quite a range of classes, and it changes every year. The big constant for the last 10 years has been the dive classes. We've trained well over 100 divers in that time. Last year there were 600 scuba dives conducted out of the lab. We have a range of classes taking advantage of the access to the ecosystems of the bay, classes on vertebrates, classes on invertebrates. We've had a climate change class there last summer, and a variety of things coming up. Some of the classes are taught by UAF professors, some are taught by our partners at University of Alaska Anchorage, and particularly the local Kenai Peninsula Community College in Homer, and also from Alaska Pacific University.
Partnerships. Can you touch on that, Chris? What partnerships have you forged to further the mission of the laboratory?
Yeah, central to how the laboratory operates is that we do most everything we do in partnership with other organizations. We're fairly limited in our federal staff. Right now we just have 2. And so to accomplish all the science missions and the education missions that NOAA wants in this area, we work obviously with the University of Alaska Fairbanks, other universities to do the education mission, as well as local marine education groups like the Center for Alaskan Coastal Studies in Homer. From a research perspective, we do a lot of work with other NOAA offices, so researchers from other NOAA offices, from in the state with the Kachemak Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, which covers most of Kachemak Bay, and with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. That's one of our big partners. And then nationally, we're working with other NOAA offices like the Office of Coast Survey, National Geodetic Survey, and other partners in our coastal ocean science programs.
How do you get the community involved?
Well, that's one of the really fun parts about where the laboratory is and who we get to work with. We do everything from, we have open houses for the general public. We make presentations out in the community. We also get scientists who come into the lab to do research to do presentations on their work, so they get wider exposure to that. We also have a lot of classes that are available for community members to take, as well as doing teacher training workshops and classes that teachers in the local schools, including local villages, can take. And then we do a fair amount of work with the local tribes from Seldovia, Port Graham, and then Wallach. That's been primarily focused on education programs for the kids.
So what is your vision of the lab?
Jim, we're looking to continue to build the lab in partnership with all the people we work with around the Bay and elsewhere in Alaska to become the place where people choose to come when they have questions, they want to investigate new ways of looking at coastal ecosystems all around southern Alaska. We want the lab in particular to be a place where we can deploy and test new technologies to see how they work in Alaskan conditions before we take them out into the rest of Alaska. And working from there, we're trying to get smarter about how we investigate coastal Alaska, because as you know, there are lots of places where you can't get to very easily, where there are no people. So we need to work out ways of developing instruments that we can put out there when there are no people around. We need to have ways to use the communities, to work with communities, to collect data that are of interest to them, but also that can be fed back to the lab and back to the world in general through the internet.
From a broad perspective, NOAA has an increasing focus on helping communities adapt to climate change. And so the lab is one of the places where we do the science to understand how these systems are changing, how they're changing now in response to climate change, in response to human activities and coastal development, things like that, and then how we can help communities to adapt to those changes in the future.
And thank you for joining us here on Alaska Weather Facts. Until next time.
Welcome back. Marine forecasts. Westerlies 15 knots here on the north coast, southwest 20-25 down south. Lynn Canal, northern Lynn Canal, south at about 20. Lighter southern Lynn Canal and Stevens Passage, and southeast 20 in the forecast for Clarence Strait. And for Monday, pretty light west-southwesterly breeze out here along the coast, 10 knots, seas 3 to 7 feet. South 15 there for Clarence Strait, and even lighter there through the central inside waters. But those south winds in the afternoon, especially for northern Lynn Canal, kicking up to 25 knots with 5-foot seas. Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, southwest breeze, variable to southwest at about 10 knots. Westerlies, same speed here, Kamishak Bay. In across the North Gulf Coast, west-southwest, 15 for Kodiak Island. For Monday, winds gradient definitely tightening up here. Northwest 30 through Kamishak Bay, down across the Barrens there with 8 to 11-foot seas. Small craft advisories also in store for Kodiak Island. Light variable winds for the North Gulf Coast with no gradient, and variable to westerly breezes there for Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet. Bristol Bay on down the peninsula here, west at 20, and same pattern here south side all the way up to Sitkinak. For Monday, small craft advisories here from Bristol Bay down across the area from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. West-northwesterlies at 20 for the peninsula. For the Aleutians, eastern areas 15 to 20 out of the west, 4 to 8-foot seas. South to southwest, or mostly southwest here for the central Aleutians, Adak and Atka, with pretty slight seas comparatively. And then south to southeast, 20 knots out west. And then I've got some gales here just west of Adak, out back toward, say, Kiska Island. Easterlies 30 knots on out toward Shimia. Southeast winds gradually diminishing down to 15 to 20 knots across the Fox Islands. And for the St. Lawrence Island zone, westerlies 25 knots, same direction, a little lighter there north of Nunivak Island, northwest 20. South of the island, light winds for the Pribilof, southwest 20 for the northern Bering Sea. Then on Monday, small craft advisories here, St. Matthew Island, Nunivak Island, right up across St. Lawrence Island, westerlies 25 to 30 knots, west 20 there south of the island, light variable winds under surface high pressure there for the Pribilofs. And Arctic coast, pretty light here, south-southeast 10 to 15 on the east side, southwest 15 central coast. Small craft advisories here back to the west, and then southwest 20 there from Wales to Cape Thompson. And for Monday, light northwesterly breezes here in store for that zone, and then westerly winds, small craft advisories, central and western coast, diminishing here as you head east and turning northwest toward demarcation point at 15. And for tonight again, rain spreading inland and northward eventually here over the southeast coast, maybe coming back to Yakutat, and then you get into mostly cloudy, kind of showery conditions here for southern Alaska. Maybe a few more breaks out to the west there, and especially up to the north with evening isolated thunderstorms right through this area gradually diminishing, but holding on to some pretty good showers up there north of Fairbanks. Fair along the Arctic coast, variable clouds, no change for the Bering Sea. And for tomorrow, again, watch for the winds, southwest winds to pick up ahead of that front. Not all that strong though, with a chance of rain on the west side. Good VFR, maybe some clear skies, north slope onto the eastern Arctic coast. And again, some thunderstorms may be triggered, but showers will be a little more likely, mostly cloudy, continued cool for the interior. Rain over the panhandle becoming more showery up to the north throughout the afternoon. And another front will move some rain into the western Aleutians and again pick those winds up, gales, a narrow band just in advance of that front there. And looks like some rain all the way east to the Fox Islands, northwest winds, high pressure building strongly over the southeast Bering Sea. So that's going to kick those winds up out of the northwest. Dry it out though, showers elsewhere. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.